Tiling is one of the most important things you can do on your farm, and we're talking about it today in part because we're going to be doing a whole bunch of tiling here in August. When we put out some wheat this year, we had the plan that all along, hey, we're putting this wheat out, so we've got August and September to tile.
Well, it's such a nice time of year to do it. Everything's warm, conditions are good. Generally, we're dry this time of year, so there are many benefits. And even if you've got crop out on the ground, it's a great time to start planning for where you're going to be doing some tiling.
All right, here's the main thing that we want to talk about today. How much tile do you really need? Have you noticed in the last few years, farmers have quit buying equipment, they've quit buying tile. A lot of these markets have really slowed down. So what's happened with the price of equipment and the price of tile? They've gone way down. So now you can buy a tile plow cheap, you can buy a tractor much cheaper than you could, you can put tile in the ground way cheaper than you could. We're buying a whole bunch of tile right now for about 2/3 the money that we would have spent 5 years ago. So since the price has come down so much, I look at it and go, you know, here's what I've learned in the last 10 years putting tile in the ground on our farm. Everywhere where we stopped, now we say, ooh, I wish we would have kept going. So we're doing a lot more pattern tiling, we're putting the tile lines closer together, and you really have to look at what's your cation exchange capacity. In other words, how heavy is your soil? If you've got really heavy soil, we've got some low river bottom ground that's very heavy, we're going to put that tile spacing at probably 30 feet apart. We're going to have phenomenal drainage by the time we get said and done, but we have to have the tile lines closer together in the heavier ground.
You know, there's a real opportunity happening this year, as Brian talked about, from a price standpoint, but I look at it from a weather standpoint. There are many areas across the country that have been pretty dry this summer, and a lot of times when it's dry, you aren't really thinking about your water problems, right? So here's a great opportunity to talk to your neighbor and say, you know what? I want to improve my drainage in my field. Most of them will laugh at you and think you're crazy. What are you talking about? It's hot and it's dry. But hey, here's a good time to do it. And you know what? When you put those tile lines in, they're not going to run immediately. So when a neighbor says, okay, let's do this, I may be a little nervous about it, you put tile lines in, nothing happens immediately, everybody's happy. And you know what? Now your soil has, it's depleted of moisture. That's a bad thing for your crop, but it's a good thing for the tile because now we're going to need a whole bunch of moisture before those lines are going to start running, which makes a great opportunity where your neighbor's not going to be worried about, oh man, you put tile in and immediately you're adding to my water problem. Nope, everything's just fine out in the field.
Remember too that with tile, it doesn't start running until the water table gets above the level of the tile line. So it doesn't take all the soil moisture out or anything like that. It's a great investment. And I guess the one other thing that I wanted to mention today is with lift stations. So we have to put in a lift station in one spot on our farm this year because we're right near the river. We kind of have to create our own slope. And lift stations really don't cost all that much money to run. We've got one lift station where, yep, this spring we had to run it for about 7 months. Okay, very unusual situation. Haven't had to do that in the 5 years we've had that particular lift station. So on average, what are we spending per acre? 10 bucks, maybe 15 bucks an acre for a whole year? Well, it's nothing. To get that water pumped out of there, it's a great investment.
All right, there's a lot of things that we could say. We could really talk for the whole half hour about tiling. The big thing to know is you can do it yourself. It's not that difficult.
No.
The control systems are so easy. The equipment is pretty easy to run. Doesn't take long to become an expert. So don't be scared about tiling on your own farm.
And don't be scared of our Weed of the Week. We're going to tell you how to stop it coming up next.